Let's spend some time to understand who is the project sponsor, especially for an external project. Why especially for an external project? Because if you understand for the external project, then for the internal project, it's much easier. To understand who is a sponsor and what is his role, you should understand the project flow and how changes are managed in a project. So let's do it. I'm sure the word sponsor is not new to you. You might have heard this in many places. In TV program, the announcement says, this part of the program is sponsored by the sponsor name. During big sports event like Olympic Games or FIFA World Cup, you could have seen the sponsor name in the ground sideboards. In tennis, the sponsor logo appears on the net. In fact, nowadays it's hard to see a sports person wearing a plain t-shirt without sponsor name or logo. So, who's a sponsor? Of course, the most obvious answer, the first answer would be who funds for the project. All right, for an external project, who funds for the project to run? It's the customer. So, can I say that customer is the project sponsor? Let's list down the roles to be played by a sponsor, then we will decide. The first and foremost, sponsor is the one who funds to the project, of course. He is the front face for the project. You should promote the project in the organization, get the buy-in for the project in the organization. This helps when acquiring resources from other projects or from common resource pool. He acts as an escalation point. In case if any issue in the project that could not be solved by the project manager, then it should be escalated to the sponsor for resolution. Sponsor sets the project priorities. He acts as a bridge between the business community and the strategic decision making group. And on top of this list, he is part of change control board in most of the organization. By the way, what is change control board? When a change is requested by a stakeholder, it cannot just be implemented. It should follow the change control process. By the way, why can't the change be implemented straight away? Most often, changes will have impact on scope, so as in schedule, so as in cost. So, as a first step, the project manager need to assess the impact of the requested change. The project manager analyzes this impact and forward the change request to the change control board with this analysis. The board decides whether or not to implement the change. We will discuss about a little more in detail in few minutes, but for time being, just remember that the project sponsor is part of change control board in most of the organization. So, the project sponsor role is not just to fund the project. He has much more to do. Let's look back to the original question. Can the customer be a sponsor just because he funds the project? Can he be the front face of the project in the project performing organization? Absolutely not. The sponsor may give the money for the project. It doesn't mean he funds the project. It only means that he pays the bill, the invoice, bears the cost of the project. So, in most of the organization, in most of the scenarios, the project sponsor will be within the organization. Let's understand how the project flows at a high level so that you can understand a little more about it. Of course, customer is the one who requests for the project. The project may reach the organization through the marketing team, or sometimes the customer himself directly contact the organization. This request will be forwarded to the senior management. They decide whether or not to take up the requested project. As discussed earlier, the management will not approve all the proposed projects. They look into the feasibility, benefits to the organization, etc. Of course, these information becomes part of business case, which is something we discussed earlier. Since we are discussing about sponsor, let's put our focus back there. The first and foremost is cost benefit analysis. Cost benefit analysis details whether or not the project justifies the investment made. This information is one of the key input to the project charter. Once the senior management finds it's worthwhile to do the project, then it's taken forward. A project sponsor gets appointed. Either the senior management or the sponsor or both jointly appoints the project manager. The project charter will have high-level information on the deliverables of the project. The project execution team carries out the work and deliver the output. The output delivered to the customer. This is typically the project cycle in an ideal condition. Of course, Every project will have one or other changes from some corner of the project. So let's talk about the change. The changes can be from customer or from stakeholder. It goes to the project manager. Most often, requested change will have impact on scope, so as in schedule, so as in cost. So the project manager assesses the changes in terms of all the knowledge area, starting from scope, schedule, cost, resource, quality, risk, procurement, stakeholder management, and even communication. Just for this discussion, let's keep it simple. The project manager need to assess the impact of change in terms of schedule and cost. He should get the support from the subject matter expert and the project team as required to evaluate the impact of change. Information and data about impact of cost and schedule helps the change control board to make informed decision which will benefit to the organization. Along with the impact analysis document, the change request will be forwarded to the change control board. As discussed earlier, in most of the organization, the project sponsor will be part of change control board along with other senior management members, or he can be alone as well. Once the board evaluate the changes, when I say evaluate, the management evaluates the impact of change on business case. If it's okay to proceed, the board approves the change that was requested. Then the project manager forwards the approved change to the project execution team. Activities to implement the approved changes are planned and the delivery made with approved changes to the customer. In case if the change is rejected, then the reason for rejection is documented by the project manager and the project manager communicates to the change requester stating that his or her requested change has been rejected for so and so reason. It's the same process if the change requested by the customer as well. Of course, if the change is going to have a bigger impact on cost, then the management discuss with the customer on the cost impact and make the final decision.